Good afternoon. How are you? It's beautiful out today, but it's a very different place if you're anywhere in Eastern Europe, if you're in the Ukraine. It's hard to encapsulate what is wrong because it has so many features. The biggest feature is the cowardice of the West to help a nation state that is a democracy, that is the subject of an unlawful violation of international law and even existing treaties that they would not disturb this nation state. And then we say we can't do anything because they're not allied with NATO. They're not a member of EU. How is that possible? This is the new order. You can violate laws, international or domestic, and if you're intimidating enough, no one will do anything about it. Biden and our Attorney General, they're not going to prosecute Trump or anyone else. Cowards. And quiet adjuncts to compromising and perhaps destroying democracy in America, because no law means chaos. It favors power, not law. And on the international scene, same thing. We created NATO. Why? To protect Europe from Russia. EU is for there to be a coalition that would find a market together that favored all the members and would help members that were in trouble. So here we have a man, Zelensky, who has literally put his body on the line and his wife and family fighting for a democracy that's about to be overrun by a traitorous, worthless, evil leader of Russia. In a tradition that goes back to Stalin, and some might say Lenin, depending on your philosophy about politics and political action. What are we doing about it? We are making a show to the world, we being the Western powers, like we're doing something. But we're not. We will not agree to a no-fly zone. We have specifically said it. We will not put troops on the ground anywhere inside of Ukraine. We will only protect the current NATO members. This is a coward's defense for doing nothing at all. And the result will be millions of refugees. I think we're already at that number. People dead and suffering, including women and children, which used to matter when you made such speeches. An infrastructure probably destroyed or seriously compromised, requiring rebuilding. But people talk about they're going to rebuild. Who? Not NATO. NATO's not going to rebuild. The United States is not going to rebuild. Russia's going to rebuild or not, as it chooses, because they're going to win this war any day, maybe a couple of weeks from now. But there is no one opposing them, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous for Ukraine, but it's dangerous for all of us who are concerned about what will Putin do next. And it must be obvious. This is his time. He has the EU, he has NATO, he has the United States leaning back on their haunches, not prepared to do anything that could combat the firepower and force and military campaigns that are underway. So at 69 years of age, what is Putin going to do when he does, and he will, fully occupy and own Ukraine? And he already has a team in place to take over the government, which will be favorable to Russia. So does he go north to Belarus and make them, in a treaty, part of Russia? Does he go south to Georgia and take them over? Does he threaten nuclear to anyone who would intervene, as he already has, without exactly saying so? How do we take heart? Oh, the sanctions are working. No, he's turned his economic eye to the East and to the Asian nations. And he's looking at China and Korea. And let's face it, those are substantial allies. Some people say there are demonstrations in the street against Putin. Think again. You do remember that he's had opposition and tried to poison one man whom he perceived as his principal opposition. And now that man is in custody. And so there are demonstrations against this war. But think about it. The Duma, their parliament, passed a bill that I believe has been signed by now by Putin that makes it a crime to talk against this war. Very heavy penalties in terms of fines and imprisonment. Does that sound like a nation that is torn? This is not a democracy that he's running. And some may say that's the advantage he has. But we had an opportunity going back at least to 2014 to prepare for what we're seeing now, and we didn't do it. Is it too late? I think it's too late for Ukraine. But if we do not put together 7 plans, as the Pentagon usually does, that would allow us to go forward into the next stage of this after Ukraine is lost, as it surely is, then we will have not just more humiliation, but our opportunities as a power will shrink. You did notice during Biden's State of the Union message that he said, we're going to make everything in America. Well, it's basic economics. If we make everything in America, our lifestyle will suffer. Because the basic economics of international transactions is that it is by our exports we increase the standard of living at home. And if we're going to isolate ourselves, we're going to make ourselves a third world debtor nation. And that's history. That's not a threat. So, to the extent we can rail against the incompetence, the fear, the cowardice, the lack of soulful engagement by our leaders at home and abroad, we have to tell them enough is enough. You either protect us, preserve and protect our Constitution. You either involve yourself in the mission that is the UN, that is NATO, that is the EU, or leave the building. We don't need people who assist our destruction while pretending to help people who are in the target range of a Russian dictator. Okay, that's enough. That's what I have today. I hope that makes sense now that I've said it. All the best. Bye-bye.